What makes the world beautiful is the diversity of every tribe and nation, but many say that the people of Greenland are the most peculiar people in the world, and strange would be an understatement to describe them. So you might want to sit tight for this one. It's about to get real uncomfortable. Join us as we look into the absurd customs in this giant island. But first, let's explore the origins of this nation that negates its name. Greenland isn't green. One would wonder why Greenland isn't classified as a continent because it is actually the largest island in the world by area. It has a total area of about 2.6 million square kilometers, or approximately 836,330 square miles. Greenland also includes a number of smaller offshore islands within its territory. This island is covered by a massive ice cap that blankets nearly 80% of its landmass, leaving only a small portion of the land ice-free. While this ice-free area might be a minority, it's still quite significant as it is almost the size of the whole of Sweden. According to a 2017 estimate, Greenland is sparsely populated, with only around 56,480 residents, despite its enormous size. Now the question is, what exactly is green about Greenland? The early Norse settlers gave the island the name Greenland, but there's actually an interesting story behind it. According to the Icelandic sagas, a Norwegian named Eric the Red was exiled from Iceland, along with his father Thorvald. After Thorvald was convicted of manslaughter, Eric set out with his extended family, a few supporters, and his thralls, who were slaves or serfs, on a journey to explore an icy land that was rumored to be somewhere to the northwest. After spending some time in this new territory, Eric discovered that the area was habitable, despite the surrounding ice, so he decided to settle there. Eric then named the place Greenland, supposedly because he thought the appealing name would attract other settlers to join him. And well, it would appear that his plan actually worked. However, some strange customs and traditions started to emerge in Greenland, and they soon became one of the most unusual people the world has ever seen. But first, we'd like to know what you think. The wife exchange custom. Decades ago, when Greenland was in its pagan era, there was a rather strange cultural practice known as the wife exchange. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like, and there were two types. The first was more of a short-term arrangement that occurred during a festival. This exchange lasted only one night and was taken as part of the communal and celebratory aspects of the event. The second type of wife exchange, however, was a longer arrangement and was usually based on an agreement between two men, either for the purpose of procreation or out of mutual attraction between the parties involved. As a matter of fact, in this culture, refusing an offer of wife exchange was actually seen as offensive. If a man presented you with his wife as part of this custom, and you declined the offer, he would simply take it as an insult. This is because the Inuit people believe that sharing wives promotes oneness amongst themselves. It's a way of showing that they are truly one community. However, this custom eventually came to an end when a larger part of the region converted to Christianity and adopted new moral codes, especially in terms of relationships and marriage customs. Before this conversion, practices such as polygamy and more permissive views on sexual relationships were an accepted part of the culture. But that's not even the absurd part. Have you ever heard of a shampoo made from bodily fluids? Urine as shampoo. Inuit women have a really interesting approach to hair care that might surprise many people, and it's only one thing: urine. Yes, they often use urine as a natural shampoo. While this may sound unconventional to those unfamiliar with the practice, it is actually a traditional method in Greenland that is beneficial for the hair. One of the main reasons urine is valued as a hair treatment is because they believe that it gives the hair extra life and a natural, shiny, and healthy appearance. In fact, science has proven that maybe these guys aren't crazy. Urine does have natural antiseptic properties, which means that it can help to cleanse the scalp thoroughly. By using it as a hair rinse, Inuit women may be able to tackle common scalp issues like infections, itchy scalp, and dandruff. The antiseptic qualities in urine are believed to help eliminate or prevent all of these scalp problems. This tradition is so important that it even plays a role in one of the fascinating creation stories shared among the Inuit people. According to this story, there was once an elderly Inuit woman who washed her hair in urine, as has been tradition for centuries. After washing, she carefully dried her hair with a cloth, which was then carried away by the wind and swept out into the sea. But this cloth did not disappear. Rather, it was transformed in the ocean to become Skalugsuaq, the very first Greenland shark. There is nothing ordinary about Greenlanders, and this next fact will convince you. Creepy myths and legends. Greenlanders love stories, myths and legends, particularly those that are eerie and most likely to creep you out for nights. There's something about a good, creepy tale that draws them in and makes them just want to hear more. Before Christianity became the primary religion and changed some of their traditions and beliefs, Greenlanders held a belief that everything around them was alive and was a spirit. They didn't just believe that these spirits were abstract forces, they also believed that they could take on various forms. Some appeared as animals, while others took on human shapes, and occasionally, some even appeared as half-human, half-animal. These spiritual beings were considered a significant part of their world, and they often looked to shaman to connect with them. And so, out of these spiritual encounters came many strange stories, and grandparents, aunts and uncles enjoyed keeping kids on the edge of their seats as they shared them. But there was one that seemed to freak everyone out, even the adults, no matter how many times it had been told. There was once a man who set out on a solo hiking trip. He had planned his route carefully and expected to head back home before nightfall, but as sometimes happens on long hikes, things didn't go exactly as planned. Time slipped away, and before he knew it, the sun set and it got really dark. The man was still far from any town or village, and he realized he'd have to find somewhere to rest for the night. Just as he was trying to find the closest place of refuge, he noticed a small hut in the middle of nowhere. He was so relieved, and he decided to take shelter there until morning. When he stepped inside, he was surprised to see that it was cozy and inviting, and there was even a bed he could sleep on. Although he was exhausted from his hike, he looked around the small hut to get his bearings before laying his head to bed, in case the hut actually belonged to someone else. As he glanced around, he noticed 4 framed pictures hanging on the walls. Each frame held a face, and while he was curious about who these people might be, he was too tired to dwell on it. He figured he'd take a closer look in the morning, and maybe even see if he could recognize any of the faces. The next morning, he woke up feeling refreshed and ready to get back on his way. But as he sat up and looked around the hut in the daylight, something strange caught his eye. He looked closer at what he had thought were picture frames the night before. As he stared, a chill ran down his spine. Those weren't pictures at all, they were windows. The faces he had seen weren't pictures hanging on the wall, they were real people watching him through the windows. Terrified, he quickly gathered his things and left, and that feeling of terror stayed with him long after he had gone. Snacking on fermented birds. For most Greenlanders, raw whale skin is considered an absolute favorite snack. No doubt it might sound a bit off-putting or even outright strange to people from other parts of the world, but for Greenlanders, it's a special treat with a special place in their culture. But as weird as raw whale skin might sound, it's not the only traditional food that would surprise an outsider. In fact, it's not even the most unusual. One of the more intriguing traditional meals is called kiviak, or as it's sometimes known, auk bird. This dish is certainly not for the faint-hearted or for anyone who does not enjoy culinary adventures. The preparation of kiviak is actually an elaborate process that requires a lot of patience. First, the cook will gather whole auk birds, which are a type of small seabird native to the area. Without any cleaning or preparation, the birds are placed directly into a fresh seal skin, complete with its thick layer of fat. The seal skin is then carefully sewn shut, and any air inside is removed to prevent flies from getting in. This sealed package is then buried under a pile of rocks and left for about 3 months to ferment. Imagine having to wait 3 months to make a meal. Afterwards, the kiviak is finally dug up and ready to be cooked and served. By this time, the fermentation process has already given the dish a strong and unusual smell that can be quite intense for those that aren't accustomed to it. Many have described the smell as powerful and quite unlike anything else. As for the taste, those who enjoy it say it's somewhat similar to the flavor of gorgonzola cheese, with a deeply savory and tangy quality. For anyone daring enough to try it, the kiviak is actually quite the adventure. But you would agree with me that a fermented bird isn't as bad as this next Greenland custom: eating a seal's lung raw. In Greenland, there is a cultural tradition that many find strange, or appalling even, and it involves eating part of a freshly hunted seal right after the animal is brought to shore. Although seal hunting is banned in many parts of the world due to strict animal conservation laws, Greenlanders are permitted to hunt a regulated quota each year, and as soon as the seal is caught, hunters will consume its lung while it's still raw and warm. The hunter first begins by carefully preparing the animal by using a traditional tool called an ulo, which is a round, curved knife that's commonly used by Greenlandic hunters. With this knife, the hunter makes an incision along the stomach of the seal to cut it open and access the organs inside. One of the first things the hunter removes is the lungs, and he is careful in cutting them out bit by bit. The precision behind these processes and techniques have been passed down through generations. This warm, fresh lung meat is then shared with those around as an act of community, gratitude, and respect for the seal that provides sustenance by food. Mask dancing. Mask dancing is a vibrant tradition on the east coast of Greenland that has been passed down through generations and has maintained its place in Greenlandic culture and continues to be practiced even till today. However, in the 1970s, this tradition was then developed and given a new meaning by the Tukak theatre, Zrenia, a group that wanted to modernize and bring new life to the ancient art form. According to history, the mask dance was performed for many reasons, and entertainment was the primary one. It was a way for the community to come together, enjoy themselves, and celebrate their culture. But beyond just being a form of entertainment, the mask dance also served a means of education, particularly for the younger generation, as the dancers would often pass across important life lessons through their dramatizations. Their dance was carefully crafted to address and explore three powerful and sometimes difficult aspects of human nature: fear, humor, and sexuality. These three concepts, fear, humor, and sexuality, are all things that everyone must encounter in one form or another as they grow older, and the mask dance provided a way to address these topics in a safe environment. The dance itself is a free-form expression, where the dancer uses their entire body as an extension of the mask, becoming one with the persona they are portraying. And every member of the Inuit tribe understands that no two mask dancers are the same. Each dancer's expression is completely different, and honestly, it's hard to decide which is more striking, the costume or the dance itself. The dancer would wear a carved wooden mask, which was carefully designed and often depicted exaggerated facial features to make the performance a bit more dramatic. However, another method was also commonly used. Instead of a mask, the dancer would paint his face with soot and create a dark and sometimes scary look that was meant to stand out. If the dancer wanted to further alter his appearance and add to the dramatic effect, he would place a wooden stick in his mouth in order to contort his face in unusual ways. For the one who really wants to be extreme, the dancer might bind up his nose with a string to make the face appear even more deformed. And it was not uncommon for male dancers to dress up as women, and they would sing, drum, and dance by themselves, and no doubt it was captivating to watch. Now, in its modern form, the dance has evolved while still retaining many of its traditional elements. The mask is one of the things that has taken on a slightly different appearance. Dancers now use black and red paint to draw bold lines across their faces to appear more dramatic. The wooden stick remains an important tool in the performance, helping to distort the dancer's face in an exaggerated way, but the binding of the nose may not be a prevalent feature anymore. The modern dancer often goes for a more wild and untamed look by making their hair big and frizzy. The colors of the mask and the overall costume are also highly symbolic, and one can already tell the central message before the dancer even kicks off with his performance. The black color represents the magical elements of life, the mystery of the world, the things we cannot see or fully understand, and the challenges that arise when living in the harsh, unpredictable Arctic environment. The red, on the other hand, is a color full of life and passion. It represents vitality, love, and temperament. It also adds to the energy and emotional intensity that the dancer already brings to the performance. Finally, the white color in the mask and costume symbolizes cleanliness and purity, but it can also be linked to the bones of the body and the ancestors who came before. The mask dance is usually performed by adults, but the children of Greenland also have a lot on their plate. Boys become seal hunters. In Greenlandic hunting communities, when a boy reaches the age of 13, or sometimes even younger, particularly in the eastern parts of the country, he is expected to catch his very first seal. The Inuit people believe strongly that this is an important step on the journey to manhood, and the process begins with the boy and his family or community heading out on a boat, where he is accompanied by experienced hunters. Once they're out on the water, they begin to rack down seals, and the boy will take his first shot, often with a rifle, to bring down the animal. It's harder than it sounds, but the moment the seal is caught, the boy's responsibilities immediately grow, and he's believed to be able to provide for his family and his community from that moment on. After the hunt, there is the important process of cleaning, preparing, and butchering the seal, and so the boy must learn how to handle the animal properly, how to strip the skin, and how to separate the different parts of the seal for various uses. So for others, it's puberty. For the Inuit people, it's the carcass of a seal. Midnight sun. Every year, from May 25th to July 25th, the sun doesn't set in Greenland. It's a magnificent phenomenon known as the midnight sun, and it stays visible throughout the entire day and night. During this time, the sun doesn't dip below the horizon, and instead it just hovers low in the sky, emitting a golden light on the landscape even at night. It's almost like it just stays there, refusing to go to sleep. If you're not a Greenlander, this experience may turn out to be the most magnificent sight you have ever seen, and it's considered something everyone should try to witness at least once in their lifetime. One of the highlights of this period is the 21st of June, and it is called the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year. This day is so special in Greenland that it is celebrated as a national holiday, with festivities all around the country. Many Greenlanders take advantage of the long hours of daylight by heading outdoors for a barbecue or a picnic and gathering with friends and family to make the most of the warm weather. So it's not uncommon to see people grilling food in public spaces or enjoying the natural beauty of the land, even late into what would traditionally be considered nighttime. This continuous daylight phenomenon certainly has a positive effect on mental well-being, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have some challenges too. For example, the constant daylight can sometimes disrupt sleep patterns, especially for those who aren't used to it. Many people have to use blackout curtains or sleep masks to block out the light and get some rest. It's also interesting to note that the midnight sun phenomenon is more pronounced the further north you go in Greenland, and in some places above the Arctic Circle, it can last even longer than 2 months. You bet the sun lovers would have a field day in a season such as this one: polar darkness. Polar darkness, more commonly known as the polar night, is a natural phenomenon that occurs in certain parts of the world where the sun doesn't rise above the horizon for an extended period, usually more than 24 hours at a time. In Greenland, this mysterious period is called kapelak, and it's a normal part of life in the Arctic. During this time, the days just flow together in perpetual darkness. Honestly, it is unlike anything most people have ever seen. The polar night begins on different dates depending on the specific location of a town. Towns that are closer to the Arctic Circle experience the return of sunlight earlier than those farther north, where the polar night stretches on even longer. In fact, in the farthest northern regions, some locals don't see the sun for nearly 4 full months, and during these cold, dark months, Greenlanders have various ways to stay active and make the most of winter. Skiing, winter sailing, and other outdoor activities provide a way to enjoy the snowy weather, and these activities also help people stay physically active. The polar night can be both beautiful and challenging. Imagine weeks or even months with no sunlight at all, and all you see all day are the stars and the faint light of the moon. Life during the kapelak may seem to slow down, but Greenlanders just see it as a time of reflection, rest, and for many it's a season to gather with family and friends to share stories and food till the dark season is over. However, the polar night season can also have a psychological impact on people because the absence of natural sunlight can be difficult to adjust to. To cope with this, many people turn to artificial light therapy or make an effort to get outside during the dim daylight hours, even if the sun itself never rises. This is because for years, humans have naturally adapted to a 24-hour cycle of day and night, so life during polar nights and polar days can be a challenging adjustment for most people. The complete absence of daylight during the long polar night is especially hard on the body and mind. We're accustomed to being most active during the day, and sunlight is essential for regulating our sleep patterns and even energy levels. During the polar night, the risk of depression can increase significantly, and people may find themselves feeling more nervous or irritable than usual. The darkness has the ability to create a sense of restlessness, and it's common to feel on edge or overwhelmed. Even daily tasks can become harder, and drowsiness sets in more quickly, leaving Greenlanders feeling tired and drained. Besides the mental effects, the human immune system also faces challenges, which can lead to a deterioration in overall health. Without regular exposure to sunlight, people become more vulnerable to illnesses, and any existing chronic conditions can worsen. Over the years, Greenlanders have recounted a change in natural bodily functions. Hair growth and skin regeneration begin to slow down because the body conserves energy to adapt to the extended darkness. Even the skin can start to show signs of metabolic imbalances and become overly dry and chapped, with peeling and even painful boils in some cases. These symptoms are visible indicators of what scientists have termed polar health disorder syndrome, or simply polar syndrome. The main cause of this syndrome has been traced to a lack of exposure to UV light, which has a domino effect on the body's internal chemistry. UV light is essential for the production of serotonin, also called the happy hormone, which is responsible for boosting the mood of humans, maintaining mental stability, and keeping the body's internal functions balanced. Without enough sunlight, serotonin levels can drop and can cause negative mental and physical symptoms associated with polar syndrome. However, when the sun finally does return, Greenlanders could celebrate for days. They often gather for festive activities like drinking hot chocolate, baking and sharing warm buns, and singing together in celebration. Communities also jointly organize events for both children and adults to celebrate the return of sunlight. No roads in Greenland. Isolated doesn't even begin to describe the way of life for the people of Greenland. In fact, the island's remoteness is one of its defining features. While many places in the world are connected by an extensive network of roads, highways, and railways, Greenland is a completely different story. The island is almost entirely road-free. To give you an idea of just how isolated it is, there are only about 60 kilometers of paved roads, and those are confined to the towns themselves. That means that although the towns have some sort of road infrastructure, there are no roads that actually connect one town to another. And so, when people want to move between towns, they have to rely on other means of transportation, such as boats, helicopters, or small aircraft. Boats are by far the most popular and common way to travel around Greenland, particularly during the summer months when the waters are more navigable. Since the island has so few roads, traveling by boat has become the easiest and most efficient way to move from one place to another, whether for work, leisure, or trade. Planes are the primary mode of transportation when it comes to traveling between towns. It allows for more efficient movement across Greenland, as it is often the quickest and most reliable option to cover the large distances between remote settlements. Many towns have small airports or airstrips where planes can land, making flying essential for both locals and visitors. In addition to boats and planes, helicopters are also used to connect different parts of the country, providing a means of transportation where larger aircraft can't reach. In the winter months, however, when the landscape is covered in snow and ice, snowmobiles become the primary form of transportation, particularly in the northern half of Greenland. Snowmobiles are well suited to the harsh, icy conditions and allow for quick travel across frozen terrain, where roads and paths are not practical. Dog sledding has also been a part of the island's culture for centuries, and it remains an important tradition in many communities today. They are a useful winter transportation method, especially in the northern regions of Greenland. Imagine how much this sense of isolation can limit the ways in which people can easily travel, trade, or even communicate with each other on a daily basis. There's sunburn in winter. If you were thinking about taking a vacation in Greenland, sunscreen might not be the first thing that comes to mind when planning your packing list. After all, when we think of the Arctic, we just imagine snow, ice, and cold, but not necessarily the need for sun protection. Surprisingly though, sunscreen is an absolute must in Greenland. The Arctic sun can actually be incredibly strong, and the risk of sunburn is very real, even in the middle of winter. That's because the sunlight reflects off the snow and ice, and it just gives you a double dose of UV exposure. So whether you're there in summer or winter, sunscreen is the best way to protect your skin from unexpected burns. Another essential item for your potential Greenland packing list is a good pair of sunglasses, no matter what time of year it is. Greenlanders are already used to weather conditions, but for non-locals, it's necessary. This is because snow blindness is a very real risk, and it is caused by the intense glare of sunlight reflecting off the snow. And then there's also glacier blindness, which can happen if you're looking at a glacier under bright sunlight. Both conditions are painful and can be temporarily debilitating, but guess what? They're all part of the Greenland experience. If you enjoyed learning about these unique and surprising customs in Greenland, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating content from around the world. Let us know in the comments which custom surprised you the most. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.